Hi friends, this is Leela. Welcome to my channel Leela Web Dev. In this video, we will learn about the HTTP headers. What is this HTTP headers? Let's try to learn in this video. The previous video we have learned about the HTTP messages, right? So HTTP messages means nothing but the request messages and the response message. So normally these are called as request headers and the response headers also. Let's try to see what are the different types of request header, what are the different data that request headers have when a client wants to request to a server. Let's try to see it. HTTP headers form a request, follow some basic structure of an HTTP header. Normally the HTTP headers from a request, when it is trying to make a request client side, it follows some basic structure. There is nothing but a case insensitive string followed by a semicolon and a value whose structure depends upon the header. That is the thing. Now you will be having a case in left side will be a case in string. Then it is separated by a column and it has a value. So that is the thing. So that's something like key value pair like this. You can a request header is an HTTP header that can be used to provide a request header. Now we are trying to learn about request header. It is an HTTP header that can be used in an HTTP request to provide information about the request concept so that the server can prepare the response according to that request. That means what I want to tell you is when a browser is trying to make a request to the server, so it will prepare a request header so that this request header, what the browser has prepared, the request header, it will provide information about the request concept context. Context means what the request is and how the request should what are the contains and all those things. Information regarding that request, it will provide the request headers so that using that information, server will prepare the response according to that request. For example, let's say the accept hyphen star. So that means accept hyphen star means anything. So we're having that headers indicate accept hyphen language, like that we'll be having some headers indicates the allowed and the preferred formats of the response. So it means what the client can accept the response. So in which format the response should be. So accept hyphen headers will indicate that format of the response. Other headers can be used to supply authentication credit. So you can also have some other type of headers which provides an authentication so that the client is telling that I have an access to. Example authorization to control caching. So control caching also you have an headers or to get information about the user agent or referrer, etc. So these are all the different types of request headers we will be having. Normally, you can say that accept hyphen star, these type of headers, we are saying that we are telling that what type of response that the client will accept and also some user agent. So who is that it is making, referrer, from where I am coming, control caching, authentication. So if a server requires an authentication, we'll provide that authentication headers. So these are all the different types of messages you will be having in the request header. Not all headers that can appear in a request are referred to as request headers. So whatever the headers you are having in the request, when you are trying to make a request to the server, so we cannot say that all the headers are request headers. For example, the content type header is referred to as a representation header. So you'll be having different types of. So now all are considered as request headers, but what we can say is some are called as a representation headers, some are called as in general headers, some are called as an like this. So let's try to see about these request headers. A representation header. Now we have seen about the request headers, accept hyphen, these are all the things. So how the we want how we are requesting to the server. Now representation header means it is an HTTP header that describes a particular representation of the resource sent in a message body. We have already seen about this one. So we contains start line and the headers and a body. Body means nothing but the payload. So any extra data whenever we are submitting a form, login information, the username, email, and the password is called as a body. The payload we are trying to send to. So those are the format of the body. So that means whatever the data we are trying to send it to the server, that format of the body, the format of the payload the headers which represents that format of this payload is called as in representation headers. The representation headers is a HTTP header that describes the particular representation of the resource sent in an HTTP message. Representations are different forms of particular resource. For example, the same data might be formatted as a particular media type such as XML or JSON. So that means we have a representation of different forms. For example, let's say that we are trying to send the payload to a server. So we can send it in a different format such as XML, JSON, localized or anything. So any language. So you can send in any language or any format you can send it, the data. But you need to tell in the representation header that what type of, in which format I am trying to send the data. So those are called as a representation header. So mentioning the format of the data and all those things called as a representation header. The underlying resource is the same in which case, but its representation is different. So that is the thing I want to tell you. So whatever the data we are trying to send is same. So in whichever format you will be sending, in whichever representation you are sending, so it may be different, but the underlying resource is same. Client specify the formats that they prefer to be sent during content negotiation. Using accept. So now whenever we are expecting a response from the server, so clients specify the format. So those are called nothing but use accept hyphen star headers, and the representation headers tell the client the format of the selected representation they actually received. So now what they actually trying to send to the server, so those all things will be in the representation header. If I try to show you here, so this is how the request, when you are trying to send a request to a server, this is how the headers will be. So first, those all things are request headers. So you can say that user agent, so who is the client, and accept, so which format we are trying to accept. So we are trying to accept text as HTML, and the language should be US, and we can accept the encoding ggp and all those. These are the request headers, and these are general headers, connection key PLA. So normally will not have a general headers. We can have or we cannot have a general headers. Not nothing. And content type. So now we are trying to send the data, and we are trying to tell that the payload. So in which format we are having content type, content length, and all those things we are trying to make. The final part of the request is the body. So body. So now we have understood the different parts of the headers. Now the final part of the request is the body. That is nothing but a payload. So not all requests will send the payload. So normally like get, head, delete options. So they usually don't need one. Some requests send data to the server in order to update it, as often case with the post request. Normally in the post request, we try to send the data. So in order to update, in order to add it data, so we'll send it. So normally in the HTML form data, in the HTML form we will be, right. So in that HTML form, we will be having the complete form details. Those all input data we need to send to the server. So normally those all things we call it as a payload or the body. Bodies can be broadly divided into two categories. So we can send the body in two categories. One is a single resource body. So nothing but in single file or something like that we will be sending, defined by the two headers, content type and the content length. But multi-resource body. So when we are having multi-part by form data, when we are having input type is equal to file, so these are called as multi-resource bodies. So this contains a multi-part body. So that means multiple bodies you will be having. Each contain different bit of information. This is typically associated with the HTML form. So this is all about the request headers. So you need to understand this one. So here the first one is the start line. The red color things are all the request headers, and the green color are general headers. Blue color are the representation headers, which represents the body, the payload thing. And the last one you will be able to see the more data. So that is nothing but the payload or the. This is all about the request headers. The next video you will see about the response headers. Hope you understood about this one. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, please post the comments below to this video. And if you like this video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.